Welcome to the Top Advisor Marketing Podcast, brought to you by ProudMouth. I'm your host, Matt Halloran. Being your own loud is not new to marketing, but the mindset, strategies, and resources to help you get there are evolving faster than this industry is keeping up. It is time to find a new perspective on what works, why, and how to move your business forward. Listen as I interview guests to help you learn from them how to be your own loud. Let's get to the show. Hello and welcome to another Top Advisor Marketing Podcast. One of the things that we have not spent a lot of time with on this show is public relations. And there's a real reason for that. Number one, there aren't a lot of people in public relations in our space. And those who have been in our space for a while, we've had on the show. But I was introduced to our guest today. His name is Justin Breen. He's the CEO of the PR firm BrEpic Communications, and he's author of the book Epic Business. We're going to talk a lot about both of those things. But I was introduced to him by another friend of a friend, and there's just something about his technique that really appealed to me, and I wanted to bring this to all of you because you can't do PR the same way that you've done it before, because it's not the 1990s. You got to market and do PR and keep your brand top of mind by using modern. And I know in financial services that might seem like, 2001, but Justin also has a lot of experience in financial services. So I'm super excited to pick his brain. Justin, welcome to the show.
Yeah, so your Colby is 7394 and I'm 8671. So it's very collaborative. And my firm works with a lot of folks in the financial services space, but they're entrepreneurs who happen to be in financial services. They're not financial services who are financial services. They're entrepreneurial abundance mindset who happen to, be financial advisors. And I'm an entrepreneur who happens to be a journalist. I'm not a PR firm owner. I have no idea what PR firms do other than a journalist. So pretty big distinction there.
Well, and I agree it's a big distinction. And Justin, that's why I really wanted you on the show. But you had an interesting distinction there, and you have a lot of experience in working with other entrepreneurs, not just professionally, but also personally with your relationships. What do you mean by entrepreneur first?
Yeah, so my brain, I'm 100% simplifier. So how my strange brain works is I take all this complexity and I hear blah, 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 and immediately simplify it into patterns. That's just how my brain's always worked. And when I was a journalist, no one knew what to do with me because I'm not a journalist who's a journalist. I'm an entrepreneur who happens to be a journalist. An entrepreneur who happens to be in financial services, or an entrepreneur who happens to be a lawyer, that's a whole different conversation between a lawyer who's a lawyer or a financial advisor who's a financial advisor. It's just a totally different way of thinking about life. Period.
Yeah. And you find that you can do the best work with those people? And if that's the case, why?
The purpose of my life is to be a connecting superhero for every visionary, abundance, investment mindset entrepreneur and share their stories with the world. So besides hanging out with my family and friends, that's 100% of my day. So it's not best work, it's only work. There's no scarcity. There's no bean counting. There's highest level investors who are entrepreneurial mindset, live in abundance, and aren't afraid to invest.
Sure.
So it eliminates cost transactional living. It just eliminates that.
Now, you went from being a journalist to this global company. Would you mind telling us a little bit of the story on how that happened and some of the things that you've learned along the way from going from, you're a global company. I know you know this, but I want my audience to understand that from really not owning, well, you just said you're not a PR guy. So help us with that story, please.
Started my first company, BrEpic, 4 years ago with zero business background. I'm 44 now. Started it 6 days after I turned 40, after my job salary was cut in half. I couldn't find a job. So now I have a global company that only works with the top people on the planet, or the ones that'll make the investment to become a top person on the planet. And then launched a second company, which is just technology for my brain. It's just a high price point invite only connectivity platform called BrEpic Network. So here, there's 5 reasons. There's 5 reasons that this has happened. So one, I married my wife. Nicest, kindest, most loving, stabilizing person on the planet. She just is. She allows me to dream bigger than I ever could have possibly imagined, and she gives me the runway to do that. So that's one. 2, I'm in Strategic Coach Abundance 360. combine those to be in those groups is around a 50K annual investment. That's an easy investment. I'd easily invest 100K to be in those groups because it eliminates cost transactional nonsense and attracts abundance visionary greatness. So that's 2. 3, embracing new technology quickly. So when COVID started, immediately got on Zoom and other platforms like that. Immediately, didn't think about it, just did it. 4, thinking globally. You already mentioned it, but my firm has clients around the world. I name my years. I name them. What does that mean? So 2020 was global growth. So every day, global growth, global growth, global growth. And 2021 is no limits, no limits, no. So when you have no limits, there are no limits. So global thinking globally. So clients around the world, my company just solves the problem. And then 5 is raising rates exponentially. So doubled my firm's rates again this year. And all that does is weed out people that ask, what do you cost or charge? And attracts people that say, what does an investment with you look like? Period.
So you have a very specific way of thinking. Who have you surrounded yourself with to fill in the gaps? Because one of the big things in coach is who, not how.
Good question. People who have visionary, abundance, investment mindset. You can only be one of 2 types of people with those 3 attributes: visionary, abundance, investment. Because my brain talks to I talk to all these people around the world and spent 20 years as a journalist talking to the top performing athletes, actors, whatever that is. So I just simplify it. And so visionary, abundance, investment mindset people are either running high 6-figure to 10-figure businesses. They see their family and friends whenever they want to, and they do what they like to do and what they're good at. Or they're going to be one of those people. They're not their revenue profit-wise, but they will be. So they don't ask what do you cost or charge. They don't make excuses. They just make the investment. So all my company is, BrEpic is, thousands of those people. And all the new company is technology for those people to easily get connected to each other. That's my whole point.
Okay. From an organizational standpoint, the other people that are helping, I mean, are you, and this is just point of clarification, are you doing this on your own then? Is that what I'm hearing?
So that's technically incorrect. That try to land the plane, because I'm just flying the plane, they get confused. They're trying to land the plane with flying the plane, and it's a confusing thing. There will be far more companies, mine, where there's no employees. There's freelancers. Freelancers. And then my new company, I have a business partner who I met virtually in Strategic Coach. I've never met him in person. He's in San Francisco, Mark Fujiwara. But that doesn't matter because I've embraced new technology quickly and thinking globally. So, and then in Strategic Coach Abundance 360. So that's why sometimes I answer questions before they're asked. This is another example of that. And because I'm 100% in the purpose of my life, it's not work at all. This is easy for me.
Right.
And so what's the byproduct of that? Because most people live in landing the plane world. Last year was a record profit year by far. And I don't care about profit. It's meaningless to me. But because of those 5 reasons, this week, and we're doing this in mid-August, this week just passed last year's record profit total. And with doing much less work, what most people think of as work, because I work 0 hours a week. So it's all in my zone of genius, unique abilities. It's not doing it all myself. It's just easy. And then the new company is just technology for that, where we'll have a big team and all that fun stuff. It's endlessly interesting.
Your book, why'd you write a book?
Most people write books and they're meaningless.
Yes, I agree with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. On the Strength Finders ideation, I'm 32 out of 34 on ideation. So very low on that. But when I have a good idea, my top 3 are activate, maximize, achieve. So result. So a good idea executed at highest level very quickly, whether it's building a global company with 0 business background in 4 years, starting a second one with a business partner that will be 100x what the current company is, or writing a book that's an international bestseller, and Chris Voss, who wrote Never Split the Difference, did the foreword. So if I have a good idea, it's executed at a high level. And most people, to answer your question, they don't know how to be Bill Gates. They don't even think they can do that, which justifiably so, or they don't know how to be Steve Jobs, or they don't even know how that happens. But they can fathom what someone like me is doing, where you start a company with 0 business background, you don't have an office, you don't have employees, you have a computer, some guts, really good idea that you execute. And then, here you are. For my company's 30-month anniversary, which was October 16th, 2019, at the time, I think I had 37,000 followers on social media, maybe closer to 40, but So I posted 30 things I had learned in the company's first 30 months. And people are like, oh, you have to write a book on that. It was pre-COVID, so they were printing it out and bringing it to meetings. So I'm like, okay, good idea. Execute, activate, maximize, achieve at highest level. So wrote the book in 43 days. Like I said, Chris Voss wrote Never Split the Difference. Very thankful for that. He did the foreword. Nice. And it's just right. Because what's the point if you're not going to, you have to do something, you're going to do it at the highest level. Otherwise, what's the point? So it's been endlessly fun because it's a key that opens up endless doors. And so that's been great for my business and brand. I'm very thankful for that. And then it's great for my clients too, because for some reason, which I didn't expect, but it's happened, is that hosts interview me first. And then you're like, well, you work with these? You work with people like that? I go, yeah, why would I work with someone who's not? And so then they want to interview my firm's clients, firm's partners as well. So it just creates this never ending collaboration. I still do 2 to 3 media interviews for the book every week. And it came out in May of 2020.
Wow.
Yep. Wow, that actually happens. Wow is meaningless to me unless it happens.
Well, sure, but you can still be happy that other people are impressed by what's going on. I mean, that's.
So that's interesting. You're the first person who's ever followed the statement I just made with that. And I appreciate that. I'll tell you why I'm like that, because out of 34 strength finders, I'm 34 out of 34 in empathy. It's very hard for me to understand other people or empathize how and by the way, Dan Sullivan, who's the top entrepreneurial coach who's ever lived, I'm very confident saying that, he's 27 out of 34. So he's not high, but I can empathize with these top performing entrepreneurs because I understand what you have to do to get to this point, without exception, by the way, without exception.
Right.
And so I have very high empathy for that. It's just very hard for me to understand people that make excuses. It's very hard. It's almost impossible. I can do it, but I really have to think about it, because at the highest level, there are no excuses, only investment, no excuses.
Let's talk about how you have revolutionized PR. And I need you to unpack this a little bit. Let's start at the beginning of why are you so sought after and what are you doing that's so fundamentally different?
I'm really thankful and grateful that you said that. Entrepreneurs are really tough on themselves. They're the hardest people on themselves, and they find a way to succeed in spite of that. And so I really appreciate you saying that. And again, I'm 100% simplifier. At the highest level, there is no competition, only collaboration, no competition. What most people would think is a competitive space, PR, no competition. I haven't done outbound sales or gimmicks or anything in years. Why? Because my directness only attracts the right type of person and eliminates people that make excuses. It only attracts people that will make the investment and have those 3 attributes in their mindset: abundance, visionary, investment. And it's fun because we're just all flying the plane together. We're all collaborating. My company's entire process is on the website. There's no tricks. There's no gimmicks. There's no complexity. There's here's what my company does. Here you go. Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's so much abundance out there, so much business to go on for everyone. It doesn't matter. Here you go. Here's my process. And most people are living in cost transactional world where they're trying to compete with everyone else. And I'm not. I don't care. Plenty of business to go around.
See, I'm so glad that you just got there, because you just totally teed me up for my next question, which is most people, Justin, who are listening to this do not understand the abundance mindset when it comes to PR. And one of the things that you have said, and I've heard you say this, is media wants stories, but there's also stuff that they don't want. Would you mind talking a little bit about that?
The very simple formula. It's surprisingly simple for creating a successful global company is you see a problem, create solution, problem solve, successful global company. See a problem, create solution, problem solve, successful global company. Most PR firms, the overwhelming majority, send these useless press releases. And as a journalist, you get hundreds of these a day from people you don't know. So that's a problem. And they're useless because they only talk about what someone does, and no one cares. No one cares about what you do. So my firm actually serves the journalist. It serves the podcast host because it talks about who someone is. And it blends in what they do. People will care about what you do if they care about who you are. It's just flipping the script and solving the problem. Because it solves the problem, clients around the world, all verticals except politics, because it's the opposite of visionary abundance investment mindset. And solopreneurs, the company is as big as Allstate. Just solves the problem. Very simple.
I'm sorry. I love the fact that you just said that's the politics or the antithesis of that, because that is.
Well, they are. Yeah, and I just completely. Highest performing entrepreneur on the planet is going to execute no matter who's in charge. Doesn't matter. I don't dislike politicians, but it's the opposite of visionary abundance investment mindset. So I completely ignore it.
I think that that's wonderfully refreshing, because our audience will pay the wrong amount of money because, of course, as we have already talked about in the show, that's what they focus on. It's that return on their investment. But what they're looking at incorrectly, and you and I agree with this, is that it is needing to be an abundance mindset. It can't be transactional. It really needs to be outcome focused. Now, when you're doing something for a company, like some of the bigger companies, and I mean, I'm more than happy to name drop some of them. I don't need to. But when you're working with them, you're getting the results that they are looking for. Tell me what so these high achieving people who are flying the plane with you, what the hell are they looking for, Justin?
All I hear over and over and over and over and over and over is, we're tired of being the best secret, and we want to be in more news and more media, usually at a global level. Many times national and regional, to create more validity and credibility for our brand. That's it. So my company solves that. I get very, very, very rarely get the ROI question. Almost never. Why? Because people in transformational world don't live it. They don't live in ROI world.
Right.
They don't.
And I know that you've heard this, because in Strategic Coach throughout your journey, there have been many financial services professionals or people who are experts, and they say that all the time. In fact, we've talked about that on this show over and over again, that so many people are tired of being the best kept secret. And I want everybody to understand that we're going to have this in the show notes, and you can go to the website and see the process, right? But so Justin, tell us a little bit about that process that you have on your site so that people can, I don't know, scribble some notes down.
Sure. Thank you for asking that. Well, we can land the plane for a second. So again, company's entire process is there. 4 steps. Again, annoyed by useless press releases. So my firm writes compelling, newsworthy stories that serve the journalists. These stories become links on the client's website under news or blogs. So it look like a story you see in the Detroit Free Press or Chicago Tribune or New York Times, whatever that is. Then my firm takes that link, sends it to media all over the world. And then when media is interested, put them in touch with the client contact. That's it. Solves the problem.
Do you do any training for the client?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, because again, 100% simplifier. The story that my firm writes, it serves the host because it simplifies the message for them when they want to do a deep dive and ask questions. And then for the client, they're like, so what should my talking points be? Well, there's the story. Read the story. There you go. Solve the problem.
Justin, when I went through my first PR training, that was the sole focus of everybody was keep on message, keep it short, keep it tight, and don't complicate it, because you've seen
Less
this.
is more.
Yeah, totally. And my favorite thing, I remember being interviewed by my first journalist, and I ended up saying something. It was very short, sweet, and to the point. And she said, "Oh my God, are you done?" And I said, well, I don't know about you, but I just went through training, and I was specifically told you don't want me to like ramble on forever. And she's like, oh my God, this is so refreshing. You're now on my list. And Justin, that was transformational for me. That was so huge. Transformation. It was.
That's it. That's all it is. And so whatever the ROI is on that, great. It's really a fascinating thing that I see when my firm's partners get in all this media and on podcasts like this, is that their message becomes so clear, and they find out new things about themselves that they didn't even realize. And so when they go out in public and talk to whoever, their message becomes clearer and clear. And again, I've lived this from a firsthand perspective and a client perspective. You ask me to tie my shoes, I can do it, but I'm not an expert at it. But at this, I actually know what I'm talking about, and basically lived it my entire life. Yeah. And so it's endlessly fun being in that zone of genius all the time.
My favorite thing in the entire world is asking a question to somebody, because this is what my area of expertise is, or genius, which is something I guess I need to come to terms with a little bit more. Utilize. I love when somebody will say, like you did. I mean, you've made my day 4 times because you said that was a good question. And I know that you're not going to blow sunshine up my keister here, because that's not you. Our first conversation. No. Yeah. So our first conversation, so our mutual friend, Bill, by the way, Bill Bloom, him and I were talking a little while ago, and he's like, so how did your conversation go with Justin? I was like, wow, that dude's really intense. He's like, look, he's not going to tell you something that isn't true to him in his perspective, and he's going to be short, sweet, and to the point. And so I'm preparing for the show today, Justin, and I'm sitting in my dining room, and I'm like, okay, I need to force him somehow to unpack this stuff because I know he's a simplifier. How do I do that? And I think you've done a really good job, and I think you've really provided some important, not only transformational, but very, very eye-opening pieces, not just about PR, but about how you should approach business.
No. PR is just a byproduct.
Yeah.
Of what? No. Right. That's what I mean. I'm not a PR firm. I don't know what that is. I'm just an entrepreneur who happens to be a journalist. I just live in total abundance, no scarcity, all investment, and complete visionary. That's my whole point. And, most people living in transactional cost world, they're just winning the wrong game. You don't go into journalism to make money. So my whole life has always been about purpose. Now, through this, I make a lot more money, obviously, but all that does is allow me just to fulfill more of my purpose in a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger way. And it just doesn't stop because I continue to make bigger and bigger investments in myself, which creates smaller and smaller rooms with more impact. And then that just creates more and more and more and more. And it's endless. It's endless. So it just weeds out the nonsense and attracts greatness. And it's endlessly exciting to continue that evolution every single day.
For those of you who are listening to this and thinking to yourself, I want that. I can tell you that there's a couple of things.
So that's it. That's why I haven't done outbound anything in years, because people either really understand that and they'll reach out and they'll just make the investment, or they'll just like, whatever. And that's fine, by the way, if they're whatever. But it's a waste of my time to talk to those people anyway, because they don't want to transform. Right. And the people at the highest level, not only will they want to transform, they'll invest heavily to do it. Yep. They will invest heavily. Yep.
I cannot imagine that there aren't going to be people who are going to give you a call. What is the best way for them to reach out to you if they want to engage you and begin this journey?
Justin Breen on LinkedIn. You and I both have very nice followings there. But also on my company's website, I think your listeners will find this interesting. There's a survey about mindset. There's a survey. You just go right to BrEpicLLC.com. There's a really nice survey. It's through the Strategic Coach platform, and Strategic Coach is the top entrepreneurial group on the planet. I'm very confident saying that. Very confident. It's really interesting what I've seen with the survey is that people don't lie on it. It's very revealing. It's very revealing not only to me, but to the people that take it. And people actually disqualify themselves with their own mindset, which is very interesting. And then they get to the next step by being like, okay, let's go. And it saves me a lot of time. It frankly saves them a lot of time. Then it's just action. Activate, maximize, achieve.
Please, everybody, check out the show notes. Make sure that we have links to everything there. And I love that. When you give people the ability to be honest, there are those who are going to step up. And there are also going to be people who, because of you give them the space to be honest, that they're going to have the chance to be reflective, which so many people don't take.
That's right.
Take a look at.
Yes, that's what's happened, which I'm like, maybe someone's going to try and game this. And that's happened one time out of hundreds and hundreds of, it's happened one time, which was that was a very interesting story, by the way. But people are so honest because how are you going to trick your own mindset that you are who you are? And then you realize, oh, wait a minute. I want to be this person, but I don't have the mindset to do it yet. I need to evolve. And, again, with the book, people, they want this life, right? They want to see their family and friends whenever they want to. They want to make as much money. They want to not have to do marketing gimmicks and outbound things. They want that. They want the right people to come to them. But I've not met one entrepreneur at the highest level, not nickel and dime businesses, smaller business. I'm talking highest performers that has not overcome at least one of the following four things. Most are two or three, by the way, and some are all four. The all four ones are very successful, by the way. But the four things are bankruptcy or potential bankruptcy, 2, depression, 3, the highest level of anxiety you can imagine, and 4, likely and or possible traumatic experience as a child or young adult. And the bottom line is most people use those as excuses their whole life. Top entrepreneur on the planet, no excuses. Figure it out, only investment. And those are the people I have the highest amount of empathy for because they will never make an excuse. They will get the result. They will make the investment.
Justin, we would need 9 more hours to unpack what you just said. And I hope at some point in the near future, you and I can actually sit down and have a drink, because my background as a therapist, I want to dive into every one of those things. Because here's the thing. If you guys have listened to podcasts, which a lot of you listen to this one and many, many other ones, those people who are the most successful went through everything Justin said. But
everything.
Yeah, and they came out the other side with the investment, with the realization that was not going to define them, that was going to be the catalyst for them to become something that much better. And Justin, there's the piece that that was the podcast for me right there. I mean, all the other stuff's great. Thank you very much for that. But I freaking love
100%.
Yeah, that was magnificent.
So you have show notes, which I'm very grateful for. You can find it easily if you just Google Justin Breen hardships Inc. magazine. So I wrote an article for Inc. magazine that talks about that very topic, and actionable tips of like, okay, figure it out, but here's ways you can really figure it out at a very high level. Again, I haven't met one that hasn't overcome at least one of those. I'm 3 out of the 4. The only one I've really never had to worry about, knock on wood or whatever, is bankruptcy or potential bankruptcy. But 3 of the 4, I think you really, to simplify it, I think you have to understand being down here to appreciate being up here.
Oh man, brother. Hell yes. One of my favorite things, there's a picture that's been going around of all of the people who've actually taken their lives, who suffered from major depression. It's Robin Williams and all of these things. And what a lot of people don't understand is those people who suffer from depression and major anxiety don't want anybody to feel like they do. So they're going to do whatever they possibly can to make it so that you have the greatest life you possibly can, even if they're not feeling it right now.
Ooh, that's a really interesting take. And wow, I haven't thought of it in that perspective. And I think you're right about that. I think that's why I mean, entrepreneurs are the hardest person on themselves, harder than anyone than non-entrepreneur. They're the hardest people on themselves. And they push themselves to grit these incredible limits, which I have endless empathy for, because they're so hard on themselves. And they use it as fuel. They use it as fuel, and they don't use it as excuses. And then to your point, they're the most grateful people, and they really try to help everyone else. I can't help everyone else, but I can help the 0.1% of the society that I work with, because they help everyone else. That's my whole point. I empathize with the 0.1%. They help everyone else. That's how I help everyone else. Yep.
Justin, this has been freaking awesome, man. I'm so happy and grateful to have met you. This has been a magnificent interview. At least this is the way that I feel about it, and it's my show, so that's important. So we will make sure that we have the Inc. magazine thing in the show notes. Also, please follow him on LinkedIn, everybody. He's posting some great stuff. Super, super important. Not smart, not catchy. Now, this is important stuff for you to have a transformational life, and you to be able to do things greater than you thought you could, because there are people who have done it before you, and it can give you the tools to do that. And I believe that happens to be Justin Breen. So Justin, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, this is a good one. I do a lot of interviews, and this is right here, right at the top. Not only do you have a really interesting Colby, with a 9 quick start and 7 fact finder, but you have this psychological approach to it as well, which is really interesting to me. Could talk forever. We'll just keep this party going. Great.
Absolutely.
Loved it.
Yeah, I'm not forgetting about you, brother. All right. If you have not subscribed to the podcast, make sure you click that subscribe now button below. That way, every time we come out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. And I guarantee you, after listening to this, you're thinking, holy crap, Jane needs to hear this. Bob needs to hear this. Just click that share button, put their email address in, and let's get some other people to start looking at the world very differently. So for Justin and all of us here at ProudMouth, we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon. Thanks for listening to the Top Advisor Marketing Podcast, brought to you by ProudMouth. If you want to learn more about how you can be your own loud, visit our website, read our blog posts, attend our educational webinars, and sign up for our new Influence Accelerator Academy, where you too can learn how to truly be an influencer in your space. Have a wonderful day.